Hello and welcome to another episode here in the Capture series, and before we start, something that has to do with all the sessions that we want to discuss in this series, and that has to do here with the reflector. And the reflector by itself is here in this case a collapsible one. It's a large one, and I have them in all sizes, and as I said, they are collapsible. That is why they have all these wrinkles here, and they never get really straight. That is not a quality mirror, so to say. It's just a plastic with a reflective surface. They are normally in different variations, and they are silver, gold, or anything between, and we have them also in white, of course, then they are not reflective in that way. I want to talk about this and about diffuser, which is here inside normally. So we have a 5-in-1 here. And on the back side, in this case, we have a black side, which will be the negative light here. So diffuser, negative light, and reflectors, and how to use them. As I have set up this here, we collect here the sunlight, and then based on all these wrinkles, as you can see here, we get something that goes here really wiggly woggly out. It's not a very straightforward reflection, and that has sometimes a beauty on its own, but most of the time it looks more like a caustics effect that we know from Cinema 4D, for example, or when we have sun through in water glass. And this caustic effect is, of course, for reproduction photography, not at all something that we want to have. And so we get then light into the camera that is maybe a little bit too scattered, a little bit too strong and weak and noisy. So this needs a very specific approach, and I will show you that in a second. This is what I have called the negative light, and this is normally a black blanket on set. It's a specific fabric normally, but the black part here, even if it is a little bit reflective, can do a good job. Normally we can use it, of course, to block the light that comes from the back, or when light comes here directly to this area, we can block it because anything that is black gives nearly no reflective, and we get here no extra light on our surface, because if we had a reflector here, or we would have here something that is very bright or colorful, then we get here light that we don't want to have. And with this object here, we can block this to a certain degree. There are different kinds of, and you get these in your film supply store, and it's normally something that looks like velvet, but it's a little bit rougher because it has to survive the daily use on set. This here from a collapsible, it's very nice and helps me in some cases when I have light coming in to the area where we don't want to have anything have from this brownish here or whatever we had here behind. You see here some flowers. So, and here a little collection of these diffusers and reflectors, and you can see here this is the golden one, this is the white one, and here we have the silver one. And the best idea, at least how I use them, is to collect sunlight with this silver one here, because it's really reflective and you get a super bright light when you collect this. And the idea is, of course, to collect sunlight here. It goes in and then it goes out and through this diffuser here. And this diffuser gives then something very soft and very nice, at least for texture photography. And this is certainly a good idea to have when you need diffuse light, even on a sunny day. And you can see this here. I have a diffuser here where the sun comes a little bit down. You see that here on the shadow. But here we have a very even light supply, and here it's more contrasty, something that we try to avoid, because any light information that we have on a texture freezes the use, of course. We have a light direction in it, and then we have to have a scene that fits, or we can use it. And the more diffuse it is, we can help maybe with a displacement map to catch the light from the Cinema 4D scene. So this is half transparent here, and when something goes in, it goes here nicely out, and this does it from all these places here where the light comes in, and that means we get a very nice diffuse light behind this filter, so to say. And this is normally also possible here if you have not sunlight, you have a big Fresnel or a Red Hat or whatever light source that gives you a very harsh, strong light, then a diffuser in a distance to the object that you want to fill with light is a good idea. So this is the overview, the reflectors, the diffusers, and the negative light. And now I want to show you a little example how to use these things. I want to go through 8 different examples here, and the first one is what I would call a straight light. It's one light source combined out of 4 different LED light sources. So we get here some kind of a soft shadow, but you see the light is very directed. It's relatively strong, and I have put this little guy here in not to get here a color profile, more that you can see this is neutral, and I have put it here in the shadow of this gray ball, so it get no light from the orange or the blue one here. So you can see what happens here, the light bleeding here and so on. And you see here even on that gray board, it has a huge impact from this wall. So this was the test, and this sphere here is completely gray. I would call it straight, and there's no diffuser, no reflector. So we go to the next one, and here I have placed a diffuser directly in front of these 4 light sources, and you can see here the light. I go back, here we have a little shadow, and here it's much softer. And we get also a little bit less light here because the diffusion takes some light away. But it's more appropriate to use something like this for reproduction photography, of course, because then we don't have so much shadows in it. As I have used here only 1 light source, we can see here clearly shadow. If I had now 2 or 3 of these guys, this would be gone as well, and we would have even light here on this side, so we don't get the light bleeding here. The next one is then an image where I have placed here on the left side something that I call negative light, where we just block this area. It must not be always something that is very colorful. It can be also a white wall or something like that, where you get light into it that you don't like to have. And white is not always white. It could be that someone has put a little bit blue into the white, so it looks really clean and blue, or it's maybe a more creamy white, and then you get something warm in terms of light temperature into the picture. So better to cover this up and set another reflector where you know exactly that it is white. And this would be here now the version with the straight light, not diffused. And in the next one, have an eye here on that shadow. In the next one, I have the diffuser again in front of the light. So we get here something that is more or less soft and neutral. So we get here only a little bit spill from the blue in the background, but that is maybe not so important here at the moment. It's exactly here. So, and this brings us already to our 4 reflector versions, and here you can see we have a relatively neutral variety of colors in it. On the gray chip, when you take a look to these numbers here, that's pretty equal. That means we have a relatively neutral light if the white balance is okay. And these lights that I use have a little tendency to be cold. That means 5900, 6000 is certainly more correct than 5500. And when I white balance this, I think we are pretty close to it. And the white reflector is of course the most neutral one, when we can use this directly. The next one is then a silver one, which is also very neutral, but it's a little bit stronger, of course. And when we hold this reflector in the hand, it can be that it bends a little bit, and the bending can have a side effect that it focus or defocus on an area, so it gets maybe a little bit burned on one area, and in the other area it gets darker. In this case, we have a little bit more light here on that area, and the light is pretty similar here. RGB is pretty on the same level, so it's a neutral light compared to the white one. The next one is a mixture out of silver and gold, and we see that the difference between red and blue is already huge. So we have 10% here nearly, and it's something that is good for talent or for softer illumination, but not for reproduction photography. And the last one, you can see this here, it's super warm. It's nearly 20% different between red and blue. And this is nothing that we should use for texture photography, because all the reddish tones here might change the colorization in the whole picture, and it's really hard to get back on the end. And so we have seen 8 different ways with pretty much one little guy, direct light of course included, diffusion and reflection, and we had some negative light here. This is a lot of stuff, of course, but there's only one method that I would suggest, and that is always diffused light for the kind of photography that we want to have. I have spent some time here to go with you through this, because we will use this technology or this reflection diffusion approach in pretty much any of the following capture scenes. And before I explain it in one and not in the next, I thought I exclude it from all these singular capture scenes or sessions and make a little clip by itself out of it. Thanks for listening. Have fun with it. Bye bye.